Hey guys, I'm back with a new video. In this video, let us continue with React hooks and learn about how we can fire side effects from inside our React code. So we already covered one React hook for managing the internal data of our component, which was the useState hook. In this video, we'll cover the useEffect hook, which, as the name can probably tell you, is used to fire side effects from right within your components. So useEffect is a hook that will get triggered whenever there will be changes within our component, and what it does is it gets a function that gets called when there are changes in the component. For example, when the component updates or it re-renders. Now there are certain stages in the life cycle of a component when the useEffect hook gets triggered. First, it gets triggered when the component mounts for the first time to the DOM. Then whenever there are changes or updates in the components, it will again fire the side effect mentioned in the useEffect hook. In case of updates in a component, there is a difference from the case of mounting. Here, in case of updates in a component, we need to pass a second parameter to the useEffect hook. So let us see how we can use the useEffect hook. So first we need to import it from React, and then to define one, let's go within our app component and say useEffect, and this takes in a callback function and a second parameter, which is the dependency list. So what happens here is that in case of updates in a component, we need to pass in a second parameter to the useEffect hook, and that is an array of dependencies. So for now, let us keep it as empty. And this array of dependencies that this effect has access to, that will not trigger a re-render unless there are some changes in the dependencies specified within this array. Now if we want our effect to simply fire one time, as in case of mounting stage of the component, we can pass in an empty array as the second parameter of the useEffect function. So for now, I want to fire it only in the mounting phase, so I'm passing an empty list of dependencies. Also, if you want to do some cleanup task in the useEffect hook, then you need to return a function which will do the cleanup from within your useEffect. For firing async calls or HTTP requests to the server, you can make use of the useEffect hook when the component mounts for the first time. So for that, the steps are that you write an async function inside your useEffect hook. So let us write this down. Write async function, and then you need to call it immediately. So let us now see useEffect hook in action. So right inside the app component, let us define a piece of state and let's name it as post. So first I will import the useState hook from React and const posts, set posts, useState. And as we know that useState gives us exactly two arguments that we can derive using array destructuring. One is the piece of state and second is the handler to set that piece of state, and this handler will set this piece of state, which is posts. Now let us trigger a side effect from within our component and let us define a useEffect, where, as I already told you, first we need to define an async function and immediately after that we need to invoke it. So let us name the function and let us mark it as async. So right here, const fetch posts async, and let us define this as an arrow function. So you can see we are using async keyword on the arrow function because now we are going to reach out to the fake.json API to fetch some posts from the API. So let us say const response await fetch https json placeholder dot typicode.com/posts, and then console.log fired. Then to get the posts, I can say const posts await, and to pass the response that we get back with JSON, we can say response.json. And then to set the posts to our piece of state, we can say set posts and pass in the posts that we get from the fake.json API. Now next step is to call it immediately. So right here say fetch posts like this. So now we have posts with us. Let us render them to our post list component. So let us go right inside our project folder. In the src folder, let us create a new folder and let's name it as components, and inside the component let us create two components. So post list.js and post item.js. So first let us log the post right here. So console.log posts, and let us see if we are getting the posts or not. Okay, so you can see we are getting them in our console. So now let us pass these posts to the post list component that I will define in just a minute. So we will say post list, and here let's use the name posts and pass in the posts. And now we are passing it as a prop to our post list component, which I need to define first. So import react from react const post list, and let's use the arrow function, return ul, and here we will receive a prop. So let us destructure this out, posts, and let us cycle over all the posts, and for each post let us invoke a post item component. Let us pass the current post in each iteration like this, and a key post.id. Now we need to define the post item component, and let us keep it simple for now. So import react from react const post item, and let us destructure the post out and return some JSX li, and let us interpolate the title and the content of the post like this. So h1 post.title and p post.body. So let us export this out, export default post item. Let us import the post item component within our post list component. So import post item from /post item. Also let us export the post list component now. So export default post list, and now let us import this component in our app component right here. Import post list from /component/post list. So let us go back to the browser to see if it works or not, and you can see we are getting all the posts being rendered in the browser. So till now we have covered the useState and useEffect hooks in great depth. By now you know how we can leverage them from within our components. Let us see how using these two hooks we can even create custom hooks in React. So let us create a custom hook, and let's name it as useAsyncCall.js. So let us create a hooks folder inside our src folder. So hooks, name our custom hook as useAsyncCall.js, and let us define our custom hook right here. So import react from react, and also destructure useState and useEffect from React. So const useAsyncCall, and this will receive a URL and some options object for our async call or for our HTTP request. Now let us define some piece of state. So const data and a handler to set that piece of state. Set data useState, and let us set this to null as the start value. Const error set error useState, and for the initial value of error set this to null as well. Now let us cut this useEffect hook and paste it right inside our useAsyncCall. Rename this as fetch data, and this will be our URL. So let us change this to URL and some options that we are receiving right here. Now once you get a response, you need to pass that response, and this will give us data, and we will set the data like this, and let us wrap this async code in a try catch. Now if an error occurs, we can run the set error handler, pass the error to it like this, and then we can invoke it right here, right after the definition of the function. So now down below let us return an object where I will return both the pieces of state, so data and error. So this is our complete useAsyncCall custom hook, and let us export this down below. So export default useAsyncCall. Now let us remove the imports of the useState and useEffect, because now we are using them right inside our custom hook, so we no longer need them here. And let us remove this piece of state as well. So now let us import the useAsyncCall custom hook. So right here, import useAsyncCall from /hooks useAsyncCall. Now right inside our app component, here I can say const response use async call, and this will take on a URL that we want to target. So https JSON placeholder .typicode.com/posts, and then an options argument. So let us pass this as an empty object. Now if we don't get any response from the fake JSON API, so if there is no response data, let us return an h1 that says loading. Now if we do have posts with us, let us render them to our post list component, and we can reference them by saying response.data. Now you can see we are now managing the state and side effects of this component using our custom hook, which is useAsync call that we just created. So let us head over to the browser to see if this works or not. So you can see we are getting the same output. So everything works like a charm. Now if I go back to the React Dev Tools, you can see we are no longer managing the post state from within the app component. Instead of that, we are making use of a custom hook, which is useAsync call, for managing the state of posts and firing side effects in order to fetch the data from some server. So this was all about the video on useEffect hook, where we learned how we can use useEffect hook to trigger side effects. We also learned how we can define custom hook using the useState and useEffect hooks. So in the coming videos we will learn more on custom hook. So let's catch up in the next one.